Welcome, Kaaren.
Thanks, Stephanie. You froze there for a second.
I
So
did.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. So thank you so much for inviting me to be on the podcast. And can I say, okay, can we stop?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because everything you said I don't think it got recorded. What do you think?
It does. That's
Okay.
StreamYard and Riverside FM are very similar. That's the only downfall with some of these streaming, platforms, is that it's sort of like staticky. But it picks up very good quality. So we look staticky or blurry, but once I get the final edit or copy, it's not. It's clear.
All
It's
right. If
pretty
you want
clear.
to ask me a question, I'll just pick it up then. If you
Okay,
want.
sounds good. Yeah. All right, Kaaren. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what got you started in IRAs?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like you,
Self-directed.
Stephanie. I was in the real estate space, for a long time, and when I was in my 20s. And even property management. And then I got involved as, the years went by into loan servicing for several years and then loan origination for several years. And then when we had the big downturn, the big recession, that's when I got involved in self-directed IRAs in 2007. And so I worked for another company and after 2 years went out on my own and founded uDirect IRA Services in 2009.
Wow. So, how has you have a lot of lending background and management and sort of
Mhm.
like every aspect that's needed in order for you to succeed in real estate. And then to top it off now, the self-directed IRAs, which a lot of people don't know what that's like, and we'll touch on that. But how has the lending mortgage background helped you in what you do now?
Well, it's helped a lot. It helps a lot because I can really relate to our account holders who are investing usually in real estate related assets because I understand the jargon. I understand, like if something isn't working, how do you work a deal to make it work? And not that we give investment advice, but we can kind of say, well, make some suggestions and see if that works for the account holder if they get stuck. And also, we understand the sense of urgency that exists when you're in the real estate investing space. Things are expected to happen in a certain amount of time, and that sense of urgency has really helped our account holders over the years.
Yeah, that's a good point. The sense of urgency and, sort of setting expectations, but also having the sense of urgency at the same time. That's
Yeah.
so true. But yeah, I mean, I could see how that's just helped you so much in what you do now. So let's talk about, oh, wait, I also wanted to mention you did broadcasting, and that was something that I wanted to go to school for. So you want to
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about that before we get into
yeah.
what self-directed IRAs are?
Sure, sure. When I was in college, I was on the campus radio station, and it was a classic rock, and it was also a classical station, so classical music, which I at the time knew nothing about. So I had to just practice pronouncing the names of the composers, and there were long
Mm,
pieces, so it wasn't it was something that I very first started in. But I was in that industry for 17 years, working in Flagstaff, Phoenix, Seattle and then where Hollywood actually for a little while, and Dallas
oh,
and
wow.
Vegas. Yeah, so I worked in all those markets.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. And how long was that period of
yeah,
broadcasting?
17 years. But for the
Oh,
last
wow.
last 24 years, I've been right here. So I'm
Mhm.
112. So
Yeah.
hard to
That's
tell.
hard to keep up with those math numbers, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
really cool. I mean, that's two different worlds, and I think we're just constantly wanting to change and evolve, and I'm sure a lot of the skills that you learn in broadcasting, you've implemented in what you do now and vice
oh
versa.
yeah,
I mean, I came from like the medical background, and a lot of the follow-up systems I brought, to real estate when I first started.
yeah,
Just playing different roles too in real estate, like management, right? I used to be
yeah.
a property manager. I started off as a receptionist. So like literally from ground up, I've just seen it almost all, and it helps you understand everyone's role. So now with self-directed IRA, like what is your role? What's the purpose? Let's talk about like what is the self-directed IRA? I think a lot of people don't even know what it is, let alone manage it or leverage it.
Right. It's so
Mhm.
true. Yeah. So with the self-directed IRA, it's like an IRA is an IRA. Just think of an IRA like a bucket that holds assets.
Right.
And so IRAs were created by the ERISA Act, the Employment Retirement Income Security Act of 1975. It was, what was it? Gerald Ford was a president then, and he signed it into effect. Okay, that's how long ago it was.
Mm-hmm.
So IRAs have existed that long, almost 50 years. Okay, so
Wow.
it's not new. Ever since IRAs were created, you've been able to put alternative assets in that bucket or market correlated assets. Now, if you're working with a financial advisor, they're only licensed to help you invest in market correlated assets, right? They can't help you with your retirement account to invest in what's called an alternative asset.
Right.
Because of their license doesn't allow that. So self-directed IRAs have always been around since the day IRAs were created. You've always been able to invest in anything except life insurance contracts and collectibles. So what makes an IRA self-directed is that you can invest in these alternative assets that are not market correlated. You just have to do it with a special kind of IRA, like a different company. It's a different thing. Although
it's a different type of
yeah,
IRA too, right?
Yeah.
Because talk about that. I know there's like how many different types of IRAs? Sorry, my light.
Yeah, a lot of different IRAs. I'd say 4 or 5. There's the traditional, the Roth, SEP, simple, spousal, inherited IRAs. We also offer the solo 401k, which is a 401k for somebody who is self-employed, has no employees in any full-time employees in any of the companies they own. You can also self-direct a health savings account, an HSA. So we offer that as well.
The 401k for self-employed, I think that'd be a good one since we have a lot of realtors who are listening, or lenders, or just people in our industry for the most part are self-employed. And I think it's just very hard, like for you there, you have to know these types of strategies, sort of implement them all, right? So what would that look like? Yeah, a 401k
Yeah.
solo,
Yeah,
you
well,
said?
the thing when you talk about realtors, right? So here's somebody who is getting paid usually lump sums at a time.
Right.
So and it's really easy to say, hey, I haven't saved for retirement at all. It's
Hmm.
also easy to hear a realtor say, oh my gosh, I just got killed with taxes. So a solo 401k can help you with both problems because you can contribute up to like $66,000, capped into a solo 401k, and that money can be tax deferred. So you work with your tax advisor and you can make contributions that can be tax deferred. And
That's
then it will lower
that's a
your
huge
taxes.
hack right there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a huge hack. Yeah, that I think people
And when
sort
you
of
retire, yeah,
overlook.
like you're saying, and then when you retire, then boom, you've got a retirement. You saved for yourself. You took care of your future self, which is so
Right.
great. You want to have some
Yeah,
for later.
I agree. Yeah, no, that's a great hack there. Especially the fact that you can defer it. It's like, yeah, that's awesome. So if you guys want to ask Kaaren more questions about that for all my realtors that are listening, you guys
Mhm.
need a schedule. Would they schedule an appointment with you? Like through how would they connect with you? I know you're very busy, but I'm sure you have a great team that you work with.
I have an excellent team. Yeah. And you can reach us info at udirectira.com.
It's
And
right
I have a
there in
whole
her.
team.
Mhm.
Yeah. Who can help you. Right.
Awesome. Okay, Kaaren. So, how can someone leverage their self-directed IRA to buy more assets? You talked about like what it is, how you
Yeah.
can implement it, what it allows you to do. Maybe we'll touch on some of the rules later, but
Mhm.
how can someone leverage it, right? If you're like let's say a beginning investor and you have that account, how do you leverage that?
Right. So if you're just getting started and you just have a new account, first off, you can roll over previous employer plans into a self-directed IRA to give you some capital to work with. You
Mhm.
can transfer an IRA from another, company into a self-directed IRA, and that gives you more capital to work with to self-direct. Okay. And then if you don't and you're just getting started, you might want to get started in a typical IRA and then build that until you have enough to actually take down an asset. But asset classes include like notes, and that can always be related to real
Mhm.
estate. You can
Right.
go to real estate meetups or network with people and find someone who's got a deal, and your IRA can have a debt or equity position in somebody else's investment, something somebody else is doing, their project. And
Right.
that may be a good way to get started. Of course, you have to do your due diligence, make sure you're making a good investment because it is self-directed. You're choosing it, you're doing the due diligence.
Mhm.
But that's a good way to get started is to find someone else's project and come in as either a debt or equity partner.
And I'm assuming people can basically consult with you as long as, even though it's self-directed, like, you sort of need some coaching throughout this if you don't
Yeah,
understand the entire process. But
true.
that's great. I'm sure your company offers that as well, right?
We do. In fact, we offer a 20-minute free consultation to anybody who wants to call us and, ask us some questions or whatever. Hey, we're going to get into the rules, but the
Yeah,
rules,
yeah. What
yeah,
are some of those rules? Yeah.
right. It's a game of keep away from prohibited transactions. So if somebody has a deal and you want to say, hey, is this in any way prohibited? We want to be able to answer that question for you. So when you get started, you have a good experience. So these rules were made up by the IRS and the Department of Labor a little bit, but basically prohibited transactions are to keep things arm's length from your deal, your IRA owned deal. So your IRA doesn't invest in a deal that you personally own or a deal that's owned by your ascendants or descendants, your parents and grandparents and their spouses, you and your spouse, and your
Mhm.
children and grandchildren and their spouses. They're disallowed people. Also disallowed is a 50-50 business partner, plus any fiduciary in the deal, like your realtor, or your CPA, or maybe an attorney could be a fiduciary in the deal and then be disallowed. So stick with people who are allowed, and those are your brothers and sisters, your nieces and nephews, aunts and uncles, so some family members, but friends and family, people in the general public, your IRA could do business with them. So really think about keeping things arm's
Mm,
length, no personal benefits. So none of the money from a self-directed IRA goes to you or goes in your checking account. The minute it does, it's taxable to you.
mm.
And if are under 59 and a half, there can be penalties as well. So these are some of the rules to know. When you're self-directing and you know the rules, you've got a great deal. It can just be so awesome because these proceeds come back into the IRA, not diminished by tax,
Right.
right?
That's the biggest advantage, right? That you
It
get the.
really is. Yeah, because
Mhm.
then you compound faster, right? So the money comes in, it's not taxed, and all that money can go back out in the next deal and compound into future deals.
It's like
Uh,
a little hack that's a hedge against inflation,
yes,
especially, right,
yes.
for people in that age bracket, like, and a lot of us don't think that far out. So, it's great to hear this and this perspective and so many hacks that you're dropping. I've sort of forgot my next question, which was, so you talked about the rules. Um, what are some of like the updates right now with the government? I know that we were
Yeah.
touching on that a little bit. What is that looking like right now?
Yeah, one of the rules about self-directed or IRAs in general, and even 401ks, is that when you get to a certain age, you're required to distribute the money to yourself, and it's taxable, like in a
Mm,
pre-tax account. It's called an RMD, or a required minimum distribution. And this is something good to know because if you're investing in an IRA, you want to think, well, what about, what does the end game look like? So
right.
you're going to have to take the money out at some point. The RMD age was 70 and a half for a long, long time. Then we had this thing called Secure Act. It came out in 2019. That changed the age to 72. But
Mm,
just at the end of 2022, like December 31st, 2022, Secure Act 2.0 was signed. And that changed the RMD age now to 73. And by the way, in 10 years, in the year 2033, that age will go up to 75. And I think
oh wow.
it's a great acknowledgement that we're living longer. We're healthier,
Mhm.
work
Mhm.
out, and we live longer. And so RMD is going to be extended and extended. Now, this is great because if you don't need the money, you don't have to take it. You've got extended years. In this case, 3 years from where it was, before you have to take the money out as a taxable event to yourself. Unless it's a Roth, and then it can be tax-free. We all know this.
Right, exactly.
There's
Wow,
something
okay.
else that, yeah, there's something else that came out that's really exciting, but it's kind of like it's exciting, but we don't have the rules yet. So
Um,
along with the Secure Act, they came out with two really great pieces of news, or one piece, but two things, and that is the SEP IRA, the Simplified Employee Pension for Self-Employed People, and the
mhm.
Simple IRA, a savings incentive match plan for employers. These two kinds of retirement accounts can receive Roth contributions. Okay,
Mm,
after tax money. This is great,
right.
but we have no guidance on it yet. So we're waiting for this guidance from the Department of Treasury. Once we get it, we'll know exactly how Roth contributions or, after tax,
Tribute.
pre-tax dollars. Yeah.
Hmm.
Already tax dollars can go in and then come out tax free. So that is apparently the rule starting January 1st of 2023 with no guidance of how to implement that. So that's on the
That'll
horizon.
be fun. That'll be fun times. People
Yeah,
trying
it'll
to
be a
figure out how
blog
they're
posts galore there. Yeah, for sure.
right. It'll be a learning curve, but I think that's great, right? Because right now there's like I forgot the statistic, but there's so many people that are self-employed now. So it's kind of great that you're able to sort of integrate the two. We don't know
Yeah,
what that's going to look like yet, but we'll see. I'm sure you'll also figure it out, and then the government will too, right? As they move things along. I'm sure they'll have to figure out a system and process for that.
we're waiting for that. I think it's hopefully by the end of the year we'll have that. We're expecting that we will.
Yeah, right. Because if it's going into effect January
No,
2024, right?
it's already in effect.
It's already in effect
Yeah,
this year.
but
Yeah,
with no guidance. So it's kind of a government situation. So
yeah, they'll eventually, I think, pick up on that. But that's great.
yeah.
Hopefully, you know how that goes. I'm always like with the ADU stuff, like it's just taken so much time. When legislation passed in 2017, it's still taking them some time in some municipalities, but for the most part, everything's up to speed now, but now they're changing it again. And then SB9 came about, and we didn't know what that was going to look like. We still kind of don't know, but it's moving along as more projects are being submitted to the cities, right? People just start
Yeah.
figuring it out. So
It's by trial and application and
yes, yes, exactly. Cool, awesome. So we touched on like what self-directed IRA is, the different types, how we can leverage it. I know you and I were also talking offline on how you can buy assets and possibly build an ADU, right? Because a lot of the people that listen to the podcast also uh, like tune in because they want to learn different hacks, different investment strategies, but also pertaining to ADUs because I think like when I meet with a lot of clients, I want to say like 70% of them is to build an ADU in the back house for their parents and either like sell their parents' home or keep it in a trust, manage it, and have them move, there versus paying for assisted living, which is like sometimes $7,000 to $8,000 a month. So it's like, why do that versus, instead build the ADU in the back. Now they're there. It's like co-living space and they're not in assisted living and they're not spending that much money and they can rent the property or instead of selling it, it just makes
yeah.
more sense. That's what I've been seeing and experiencing in a lot of these consultations.
Well, now and then, like you're talking about these rules, or I was on the board of an HOA. I mean, you can make your garage an ADU, isn't that right?
Yeah, so HOAs can't prohibit you anymore from doing it, right? So now, yeah, I think people just have to live denser here, but also, like how do we help the boomers keep some of those assets and not sell them off, because they can't maintain them or can't keep up with them. And I think if like the kids understand how this sort of investment strategy would look like, then they can also help them leverage their self IRAs, right? Like that's just where my mind kind of goes with it.
Well, so when you talk about self-directed IRAs and ADUs, you think about if it's your own property, your IRA cannot improve a property you personally own. So your IRA would not invest in an ADU on your own property.
Right.
But here's one of those things, like if you want to, like, how do I invest my IRA? Well, maybe, maybe Stephanie, you want to build an ADU and I've got money in my IRA and you need some capital to make it happen. Maybe my IRA becomes the bank and lends you money, or maybe a secured note against the ADU. That could
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because understand that retirement accounts in whole represent like a $40 trillion pool of funds, right? So it's a giant pool of funds. And a lot of people don't know that their retirement accounts have this ability to be the lender and allow somebody to do something. So somebody trying to start an ADU project on a property that they own and they're looking for capital to make that happen and maybe having a fuss getting a loan at a bank for something that's kind of niche-y like this. Self-directed IRAs are the answer. You can talk to people, hey, do you have an IRA? Do you have a 401k or, with a previous employer? Then they can just move that money and create a note and then that retirement account can then lend and help that person build their ADU.
Yeah, that's another great hack. you know, because a lot of like the new, I would say like more of the millennial buyers, they come in, they buy a property or they buy their first fourplex and they don't have enough equity. So the bank's not going to lend them a HELOC. It's going to be way high to get a construction loan right now with these rates.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like thinking outside the box. Well, how else can we fund this? Well,
Yeah.
maybe if someone in your immediate family has a self-directed IRA, they
Well,
become the
again, immediate family, not parents and grandparents, right?
right,
Not your
right.
spouse, but like your,
Mhm.
yeah. Or maybe you're networking and you go out and you meet people. And it's people that you meet in, investor friends that you meet from all the events you go to,
Right.
you know, the meetups that you go to. And you
Yeah,
can,
that's why I love doing the meetups that I do
yeah,
because it really you connect with people and you sort of vet them and see
yes.
if you like them, if you want to invest with them, and but mainly vet people, right? I think I was watching one of your YouTube videos and you were
Mhm.
stressing a lot about that, and I do too because that's why I started doing the ADU meetups because there was a few people in the industry when I first started who weren't really ethical or weren't doing what they said they were. So I started doing the meetups myself, and I said I want to have a little bit more control over who's part of my network, who's coming to these spaces, curate them a little bit better, and vet people. I mean, you're not always going to be 100% sure, but through association and through relationships is how, like you and I, right? We met through Mike.
Right.
And we know Mike very well, and it was just like by default, we by association we're here now.
Yeah. Well, you're
So
right. It's who great people introduce you to great people. And that's
exactly.
the same thing, you still want to vet the deal and,
Mhm.
put it all on paper, look at the math, and does it make sense? But this is where self-directed IRA can really help. Um, because if a self-directed IRA, say for example, owned a property and you wanted to add an ADU, the IRA would have to pay 100% of the expenses of building that ADU. Okay.
Right,
Or
right.
take on a non-recourse loan, and we could go down the rabbit hole on that one. But that's
Mhm.
possible that you could do it that way. But if your IRA is lending money to someone else to build their ADU, there's a lot of wins there because first off, your IRA can grow and you're building your retirement while you're helping someone else to finish their project. It's like a win-win. And that's what I really love about this space is how on a grassroots level, self-directed IRAs can help improve neighborhoods and improve retirement savings and create jobs even, from the people that are working on this ADU, giving them jobs. It's just such a win-win for everybody.
I don't think a lot of people are talking about this. This is probably like the only podcast where we're really talking about ADU hacks. That's another way to fund it because right now, I would say working with the city is one issue, but the top issue besides of getting them appraised is financing, right?
Right.
People just don't have 100 to 200,000 laying around to build an ADU in their backyard, and most of them want it because for different reasons. People are working from home. People have want to build yoga studios. I had a client who wants to build a yoga studio. They're turning them into midterm rentals for travel nurses because travel nurses prefer smaller units. It's like multi-use, right? Yeah, there's so many
Yes.
different reasons why people are using them or building them, and I'm all for it. So yeah, I'm always looking at creative ways to sort of pivot and kind of look at other ways that you can fund it. So this is like probably the gem and the highlight of the episode today. I also wanted to ask if with self-directed IRAs, would you have to like can you add someone to it as well, like a beneficiary besides your? It would just be the immediate family, right? You said.
Oh, okay. Well, let's think about this. Beneficiary. So if someone is, when you open an account, you have beneficiaries. In case you were to pass away, you have
Got it.
beneficiaries. And you can name any beneficiary. It could even be a trust. It could be an organization.
That's what I was gonna ask. Can you?
Yeah.
Is it like sort of attached to a trust? Yeah. Okay.
So an IRA is like a trust to begin with. But if you have a living trust, people will sometimes make that the beneficiary. That's something
Mhm.
you want to have a discussion on with your trust attorney to make sure that they think that's a great idea. But so you're going to name someone your beneficiary. Typically, it's your spouse
Right.
and your children. Typically, that's what we see. But if you were to pass away, God forbid, what happens then is that entire IRA, it doesn't go through probate. It's like a trust. And
Mm.
that IRA and all of its assets are transferred into inherited IRAs to the beneficiaries without
Got
going through.
it. And if they don't have any, then what would that like hypothetical probate process look like if, let's say, they don't have any beneficiaries, it's just them
We
and
don't
they
open accounts that don't have beneficiaries because it's
oh
just so
wow. Okay.
because yeah, then we would be on the hook to find out who gets this, and
Right.
that's our that's not our wheelhouse. So we make sure that everyone has a named beneficiary. And by the way, I'll throw this out there: is if you have any retirement accounts, it's a great idea every couple of years to go through your accounts and say who is the beneficiary and
Hmm.
update that, because people sometimes pass away or things change, and you definitely want to update your beneficiaries and look at that. That's a good tip.
Yeah, I think I had a client who had one and he didn't know that his ex-wife was still on there.
Happens.
So
This
yeah,
happens
check
all the
and
time.
update your
Yeah.
beneficiary to make sure
Yes.
that's the one you want. So cool. Well, I really want to thank you. We're like 30 minutes in and you've been dropping so much information. I'm very grateful for you being on. I want to switch it up a little bit and I'm going to ask you two or three fun questions that I thought would be good for the show. So one of them is if the self-directed IRA had a theme song, what would it be? What's the I'm
Oh,
not really good with
wow.
like names
This
of
is somebody who
songs.
was a radio announcer. I know a lot of songs.
Yeah.
So, uh, you know, um, I would, I don't know, money, money, money. I don't know. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I had never thought of that, but that's a great question. I think,
Okay, that's fine. You can get
yeah.
back to me on that one. That's fine.
Okay, random. All right.
Yeah, it was really random, but I wanted it to be still pertaining to
Surprise.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you'll have to think about that. And maybe we'll put that as like our theme song for our clip here. That would be
Okay.
funny.
I'll
All
throw it
right,
in.
so the next one is what's your favorite travel destination?
I've been traveling a lot lately, which is kind of fun, but my favorite travel destination is always England. I've read a
Oh,
lot of
really?
history. Yeah, I love the history, and I've been there several times, and there's just always something fascinating. Being born in California, you don't see a lot of history, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Old
You
buildings
don't,
are years old, maybe 100,
right?
but it's nice to go to Europe, and I like England especially, and see the history. And just
I'll have to go visit sometime.
we'll go together, you and me.
Yes, we should, and we'll take Mike. Mike, if you're
Okay,
listening,
yeah, there you
Mike, you
go.
need to go. Yeah, that would be so much fun. I'm actually flying out to Miami next week and then Puerto Rico, but I've
Oh,
somehow got to make time to go out to Europe. That would be really fun. So
yeah,
maybe we'll
Puerto
plan
Rico.
that
Enjoy
next
that
year.
in August. That'll be
Yeah,
special.
that'll be nice. Yeah, and then last one, Karin, is what's your favorite restaurant? I got to write this one down too because I love
Well,
eating at different
okay.
restaurants.
I would say Mastros. I love Mastros.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
can never go wrong. Well, that's where we met, right? It was the Mastros at
yeah.
oh no, was it Javier's or was it
No,
Mastros?
you're right. It was
It was
Javier's. Yeah.
Javier's, but that
Oh,
was
that's
good
right.
too. I would
That
say
was
Javier's is
amazing.
pretty
That
good.
was great.
Yeah.
And Mastros is right next door to it. Yeah. Javier's is
We'll have to
great.
go there
Mastros.
again. Yeah.
Oh, let's do it. That was when we were on the patio. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, that was nice. That was really nice. Shout out to Mike because he invited me and I
And what
got
a
to
great
meet
group of
you.
people.
It was a great group of people and it was a great night. And we were in Newport. I mean, you can't beat that. And by the way, guys, we're both here in Orange County. So for any management leads or ADU leads or clients or services, I'm here to help. And also Kaaren for any self-directed IRAs, her information's right there. Info at uDirectIRA.com. And yeah, any closing thoughts, Kaaren? I really want to thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the closing thought, if you want to have a takeaway from this event, I mean, you've learned something about self-directed IRAs. Look into it and see if it's for you, but definitely save for your own retirement. My takeaway for you would be to make a
Yes.
contribution to your retirement account today so that you can save for your future self. There, almost none of us have what we need to retire, and you don't want to be one of those people, standing in line to buy one banana at the grocery store. You know what I mean? You want to be prosperous, and so do a favor for your future self and invest, and invest in yourself and make a contribution to your retirement
Yeah,
account.
your future self will thank you for it.
Yes,
Yes,
true.
exactly. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Please follow Kaaren. I'll go ahead and tag her and share all this information. Follow her on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the platforms. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. All right. If
Click
you want to
here.
ask me a question, I'll just pick it up then. If you
Okay,
want.
sounds good. Yeah. All right, Kaaren. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background and what got you started in IRAs?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like you,
Directed.
Stephanie, I was in the real estate space, for a long time, and when I was in my 20s, and even property management. And then I got involved as, the years went by into loan